All right, mic check 1 2. Hello, hello. This is Just Human, episode 345. I am sitting here on Monday morning, and I woke up to some alerts on the Comey docket. I had a very nice morning of sleeping in because I forgot that the kids had school today. I figured they had Columbus Day off, and so I just slept. It was nice. No alarm clock, nothing. And fortunately for all of us, my wife did not do that. And she remembered that the kids had school and she set her alarm, which did not rouse me whatsoever. So shout out to Mrs. Human for being the responsible adult in this household and getting the kids to school on time this morning while I snoozed. And then took the dogs out whenever I eventually did get up. She kind of made me get up, truth be told. She had the dogs wake me up, which is a great way to wake up. Dogs pouncing on you. So I took care of the dogs this morning, and first thing I saw on my email was alerts for new filings in the United States v. Comey case. And so here I am, got about, I don't know, I'm like 4 ounces into coffee. I don't feel fully awake. I'm definitely still partly asleep, and also partly maybe a tad drowsy from antihistamines. But we have new court documents in the Comey case having to do with discovery. And we knew that documents would be coming fast in this case, and I want to stay on top of them. So I've got my coffee. I've got my dogs now sleepy because they've had some morning exercise and breakfast. There's one of them. The other one's close to me right here. I got to remember not to push back on my chair because I'm going to bump into her. Thank you for the compliments on my dogs. I really appreciate it. They are beautiful, and they're wonderful dogs, and they're very, very lab, which means they stay puppy forever. They retain a lot of their puppiness. Although I'll say that the female Athena, they're half pit, half lab, and she's a bit more pit mama than she is lab mama. And Hercules is all boy lab, just 100% all boy lab all the time, which is awesome. We've been working, last comment on that, we've been working with them lately. They're 2.5 years old now, or they're about 2.5 years old. And we've always slept them in their crates at night, especially because Hercules will just chew on anything. He'll eat anything. And we've been transitioning them out of that lately and getting them to sleep outside their kennels at night because we want to move the kennels from upstairs to downstairs and put them away in a corner where we only need to put the dogs in them occasionally, like when a maintenance person comes over or we have guests or something and we don't want the dogs interfering. So we want to move the kennels from a central location upstairs downstairs. So we need to transition them out of being in their kennels at night. And we've been working on that, and Athena's done spectacularly well. She's fine. But Hercules thinks that not being in his kennel at midnight or 1 a.m. means it's playtime at midnight or 1 a.m. So we've been working with them on that no, it's quiet time. It's time to go to sleep. And we've also been teaching them where it's okay to sleep in the house, which has been fun. And I'm really happy about. Athena likes I'm happy with the places they've chosen. Athena likes to sleep in the dining room on this like futon thing that's near a window, so she can be a pit bull mama, right? She can kind of guard and watch over the house. And Hercules likes to sleep in my boys' room, usually on my oldest son's trundle bed. He pulls out the lower one, and Hercules chills in there. Now, if they had it their way, they would both sleep at the foot of my wife and I's bed, but there's not enough room. One day maybe we'll live in a house with a big enough master bedroom that we can buy a big enough bed, and the dogs can we'll have our own bed, but maybe we can have the dog's own bed. That's the dogs. These two dogs, if there's an opportunity to be spoiled, they're going to take it. Which, hey, if you're not spoiling your dogs, you ain't raising them right. All right, enough about the dogs anyway. My link tree is where you will find all the places to follow, watch, listen, and support me. You can find the link for it in the description of this show or in my profile, wherever you're watching or listening this, or wherever you're following me, except for on True Social, which bans Linktree, at least for me anyway, and also bans my Substack link. I don't know what's up with True Social, but they do. Anyway, I did fix this icon here, so now it shows YouTube, and thank you to everybody who has subscribed to my YouTube page. I've gained like 140 followers, something like that, since my last video. That's awesome. If you guys ever use YouTube, I would really appreciate you subscribing to me over there, or hopping over there and liking the video, watching the video over there, just like you do on Rumble or X or Substack. It helps me out a lot. And I'm not monetized on YouTube, but I would definitely like to be. And maybe I'll get banned on YouTube again. Maybe I'll offend the overlords over there again. I don't know, but I'm gonna do what I can with it while it's available to me. And so I've been uploading some short clips over there, and also full episodes. I haven't made a playlist yet. I should do that today. My playlists are on Just Human Rumble page, and there I have a playlist for this Comey case, and then my podcast, and then clips. I'm putting all of those in playlist. So if you're looking for something specific, you can find it over there. Someone said to me recently, they left a comment saying that I never talk about Flynn or the FISAs and things like that. And I was like, I wanted to just like send them my Durham report video. Like, yeah, I only read the entire Durham report word for word and talked about it like almost every episode I do. And then the Durham annex. We're not done with Durham. We're going to keep on coming back to Durham. Also, my Substack, justhuman.substack.com. That is the best place to support the show. A paid subscription over there, $7 a month. Gives me a coffee. Basically, you're agreeing to buy me a nice coffee, a snob coffee, and I'm a coffee snob. You're agreeing to buy me one snobby cup of coffee a month. In exchange for that, I will write articles, and I will do research, and I will make these podcasts and these videos, and I will take you through all of these documents. And on X, I will write threads, and I will make posts. And I haven't written a thread on these latest Comey documents. That tends to be what I like to do, is when there's new filings, I make a thread about them. But this time I'm going straight to the microphone. So maybe I'll make a thread about this after we read it. I'm going to refresh it one more time. We're already at 34 docket entries. Okay. We're at 34 docket entries. Last we were here, we had 23 entries, 24 entries, something like that. And the trial was set for Monday of January 5th, 2025, which means everybody needs a time machine. So that's not going to work. So I think they're going to have to look at actually, I need to check. Did the judge just look at his 2025 calendar in January, or is it a typo? Let's see. Is January 5th, 2025, or is January 5th, it's Monday, right? Monday, January 25th, 2025. Let's see if Jan 5 is on a Monday in 2026. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Right here. I got it right here. Oh. In 2026, January 5th is on a Monday. So it's a typo, and it should say 2026. I was curious if maybe he looked at his 2025 calendar, which would have had Monday. The first Monday in January was on the 6th of this year. So that's what he's done. He's looked at the correct calendar date and everything. It's just a typo that it says 25. Okay, so that makes me feel like it probably is set for January 5th, Monday in 2026. However, everybody's expecting a superseding indictment. And to some extent, I feel like it's almost, I shouldn't say it's wasteful, but the whole time I'm going to be reading these documents, which we have all of these filings right here to go through. They're all pretty short. They're not like, and none of them are more than 10 pages. I think they're all between 4 and 7 pages. It kind of feels like going through this is not wasteful, but it's like, we're going to be back here again because there's going to be a superseding indictment Shirley, and we're going to have to do some of this stuff again. And it's going to change the protective order on the materials, and it's going to change discovery, and they're going to have to set new dates and deadlines and all those things. But until that happens, we'll go through these documents. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you had a great weekend. My son's middle school soccer team won the championship. Very happy about that. Very happy about that. It's been a great season. They've been almost undefeated all season. I think they lost one game the whole season. And the last game I got to go to was I didn't get to go to the championship game because neither did my son. He was in a band competition, marching band competition. And it's more consequential for him to miss that than for him to miss the soccer team. Like, my son's on two teams at the same time, and he had to make a choice. Which team needs me more? The marching band needs him more than the soccer team needed him. And so, but the championship games that I've gone to and other games I've gone to, man, they've been good. It's so good. All right. Anyway, enough asides and random stories about my life. Let's see. All right. So this has to do with the security officer. So there's going to be classified information in this case. And when there's classified information in the case, a security officer is appointed. We learned a lot about this in the Trump documents case. And it was really interesting to see how classified information was handled in that case. They ended up building a facility, or at least a temporary facility, in order to handle some of it. And then some of it was at a military facility, if I remember correctly, for a time. And there was drama over access to the classified information and Trump's attorneys being able to look at it, and et cetera, et cetera. So in this case, we know there's classified information, and we read, and we were very excited to read, that DOJ attorneys are saying they're either going to go for full declassification of all this stuff just to make it all easy, or it's going to be the fastest SIPA filings you've ever seen. So a classified information security officer, the recommendation is for Jennifer H. Campbell. I don't remember that name, but there are some other suggestions here. And one has not been chosen, but one has been recommended by the DOJ. And I think it says ordered right here. So ordered. So I'm guessing it's going to be Jennifer H. Campbell. James Dunlop, the DOJ Department Security Officer, recommends Ms. Jennifer H. Campbell for the position of the Classified Information Security Officer in the case. Also recommend the specialist, and I listed them all there. They all have the clearances and certifications, blah, blah, blah. Their duties include all these things. Okay. And then the judge said, so ordered, and signed it. So that's going to be who the information security officer is. Now, this may not matter all that much, but it also could end up mattering later if there's any difficulty in handling this classified information, these materials. We don't know what they are yet. Hopefully we will know because they'll be declassified. Next thing is that they were supposed to file by 5 p.m. on Friday a proposed joint order between the parties, between both defense and prosecution were supposed to get together and agree on a proposed order for discovery and how the discovery process would work and what the discovery would be. And in failing them to agree on that, they were each supposed to file their own proposed discovery order by today. So all that has come through. And on October 10th, they filed a motion for a discovery order for Comey right here, discovery order as to Comey signed right here, and then pre-trial motion date. Okay, so let's look at this right here. The first one, this is Comey's motion for standard discovery order. May not be that exciting to read. I'm going to go over it real quick. The parties were ordered to confer, and if able, reach an agreement, they were supposed to file on Friday. The parties have met, so prosecution and defense met, and conferred and agreed that the terms of the standard discovery order should govern this case. So, standard discovery order. As described below, the parties have a disagreement as to the interpretation of those terms. Not surprised. Comey, by counsel, therefore asked his honorable court to enter the standard discovery order and the proposed order interpreting certain terms. So let's all agree on what we can agree, and then where we disagree, let's handle that separately. In the course of the parties meet and confer, the government sent the defense the standard discovery order attached, and defense signed it with no changes. To date, however, the government has not returned a signed copy. While the parties agree to terms of the standard discovery order, the parties disagree as to an interpretation of one term of the order. Specifically, which of the two pretrial motion deadlines prompts the government's Rule 16 production, described in paragraph 1, requiring the government to produce certain discovery, quote, no later than 5 business days after the deadline of pretrial motions. Let's look up what Rule 16A discovery is. We can all look these things up together and learn together. Rule 16A, discovery request from the defendant to the government. Obviously, the government must permit discovery of relevant written or recorded statements or confessions made by the defendant or copies thereof. This includes statements that are substantially verbatim, exact reproductions of the defendant's words, summaries of statements, and those discoveries through which there was obtained through electronic surveillance. The government's obligation is limited to production of such statements that are within its possession, custody, or control, and whose existence is known or could be discovered through due diligence. Additionally, Rule 16A requires the government to produce relevant results or reports of physical or mental examinations. The rule also allows the court to condition discovery under Rule 16A2 by requiring the defendant to permit the government to discover similar items that the defendant intends to produce at trial. It is important to note that certain materials are not subject to disclosure under Rule 16. For example, reports, memoranda, or other documents made by the defendant or their attorney during the investigation or defense are not discoverable, nor are statements made to the defendant or their attorney by others. So this is like they're going to say, okay, we want everything Comey has said about the materials at issue here, everything he's written, everything that he's recorded to have said in regards to the materials at issue, the charges at issue. And we don't know what those are. We don't know if they're the Comey memos. We don't know if they're that he wrote on his own private computer. We don't know if they're instructions to McCabe or Richmond. We're not sure because we don't know who person 3 is. But the disagreement here is which of the two pretrial motion deadlines prompts that production. Like starts the clock on when the government has to produce those things. Mr. Comey asserts that the first set of pretrial motions, which are due on October 20th, which the court ordered at the arraignment hearing, demands that discovery be produced on Monday, October 13th. That's today. Naturally, at least some of this discovery will inform the basis for the vindictive and selective prosecution motion that is to be filed on October 20th, 2025. So we can mark that down as something that's good to learn right now. We can expect on October 20th of 2025, so that's this Friday, right? Or next Monday, sorry. Next Monday, we should get a vindictive and selective prosecution motion from Comey. And that should be, look, I'm going to tell you right now. And you should know this. You really should keep this in mind. This whole thing, this case right here, could be sunk with that motion next Monday. And not because the judge is crooked, not because of some shenanigans, not because of the deep state, but because Trump, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, and so many others that have something to do with this, but especially Trump and Bondi and Kash, because of comments they've made against Comey while Trump has been president, not just comments they've made over the past 10 years, but comments they've made since Trump was sworn back in. that this selective prosecution, vindictive and selective prosecution motion, could be incredibly hefty and very, very compelling. And I would not be surprised if it is so powerful and so compelling that the judge dismisses this case and says, look, you had Durham recommend against prosecuting this in a written memo. If it has to do with the stuff Durham investigated, which we think it does, which would be Richmond. Comey, you have Comey's own statement saying that he'd never authorized anybody. You have individuals saying Comey didn't, like Daniel Richmond, if he is person 3, he said Comey never authorized him. Durham and his investigator said, and Durham wrote the memo, which we haven't, it's classified, maybe we'll get to see it, recommending against prosecution in Tropic Vortex. IG Horowitz already looked at Comey's memos and other things and recommended against prosecution, just said Comey didn't handle this in the right way according to department policy and guidelines, but he didn't give a criminal recommendation, a criminal referral. So there's so much weighing against this prosecution, assuming it has to do with those individuals, which it's fair to assume it. We know that Durham was interviewed by this team about his investigation, and that's why that Tropic Vortex stuff was declassified. I think, anyway, was to make it easier for this prosecution to come about. So you should know that this really could be successful. If you think back, if you were with me for the Jack Smith prosecutions of Trump in the documents case and the January 6th election interference case, and you think back to his motions to dismiss for selective and vindictive prosecution, you may remember some quotes from Biden in there, some quotes from Merrick Garland. You may remember memos that went back and forth between the White House and the National Archives and DOJ and FBI. And those filings tried to make it seem like this is all about Biden's political opponent who he knows he's going to be running against in the next election. And he's trying to undermine Trump's candidacy in 2024 with this prosecution. That was basically the argument, is that this case should never have been brought. They don't have enough on President Trump. And President Trump did nothing wrong, but they're trying to make it seem like he did because they weaponized the justice system against Biden's political opponent into an election year. And here are their statements, here are their memos looking at how they pushed and they tried to make this prosecution happen, and it's all going to fall apart. And eventually it did, because Trump won in the J6 case, and then in the Docs case, because Judge Cannon ruled that Smith was not appropriately or legitimately appointed. But when you think back to that motion, if you were with me reading through those motions, if you thought those were compelling, this should be way more compelling, because Trump and Cash and Bondi and Gabbard and I don't know who else, but other people in the Trump admin, Trump's own words against Comey are so much, they go so much further than what Biden said. And that matters. Those things matter. And honestly, I think that if Trump really did want Comey if Trump really did believe the things about Comey that he's posts on True Social and that he says in conferences, if he really did believe those things, he would not say them, because he knows that him saying those things, particularly while president, when he says them outside of being when he's not president, as when he says them as a private citizen, when he says them on the campaign trail, that's a bit different. But when he is the president and he says these things, And when the FBI director wrote a book called Government Gangsters that literally has a list of people he would like to see prosecuted. And when people in Trump's admin and around Trump's admin make all these statements against Comey, it's very easy to paint the picture of this being a vindictive and selective prosecution, especially when people who investigated Comey previously for similar or the same behavior and activity recommended against prosecution. Now, I'm not predicting that they will prevail on this motion. Also, I don't want them to. I don't want them to prevail on it. I got to change how I'm sitting. I don't want them to prevail on this motion because I want this case to go forward, because the longer the case goes on, the more documents we get. And I don't want this thing to be closed without all the discovery materials and things getting declassified. So I'm not predicting that they will succeed on it, and I don't want them to. But we should all keep in mind that they possibly could. And I think that as we say around here, understanding is greater than reacting. I think the understanding is greater than reacting approach to this is that we should understand that a good case can be made, that it is vindictive and it is selective. Fair enough? As of the date of this filing, which this was filed on the 10th, so last Friday, I believe. As of the date of this filing, we have received 1 page of discovery. The defense has received 1 page of discovery. The government contends that the term deadline for pretrial motions refers to the deadline for the second tranche of pretrial motions, which is due on October 30th. Well, here we go, guys. We're using that word, tranche. In fact, we should practice. We should practice how to say this word. You know, when they bring this word out, when Congress loves to use this word, and DOJ loves to use the word. This is a very Washington word. When there's some super important papers and documents that are super critical, they use the word tranche. They don't call them boxes. They don't call them sets. They call them tranche. Come on. Tell me how to say tranche. Go over here. All right, here we go. You ready? We're going to make sure we're saying it right.
Tranche.
No, that can't be right.
Tranche.
I don't like that.
Tranche.
I don't want to call it a tranche. That's incorrect.
Tranche.
No, that doesn't sound fancy enough. Tranche sounds like... we all know what it sounds like.
Tranche.
Tranche is the hillbilly pronunciation of it. We're going to go for the sophisticated Ivy League pronunciation of it. It's a tranche. Okay? Don't you people use tranche in the comments. If you people start commenting about this, and when you type it out, you're typing it out as tranche, I will be upset. That is not permitted. It's a tranche. All right, to be able to fully articulate all bases for the first... Is that the wrong... That's the wrong word. No, it's plural. All the bases for the first tranche of pretrial motions, including the vindictive and selective nature of this case, to be able to effectively defend Mr. Comey. And because it is the plain language of the standard discovery order, Mr. Comey respectfully requests that the court enter the additional proposed order, making clear that the deadline for pretrial motions referenced in the standard order is October 30th. So we're arguing over 10 days. They want all the discovery stuff due, all the Rule 16 discovery stuff due 10 days earlier than the government argues it should be due. And this is the proposed order right here, 7 pages. And guess what? That's the one that the judge signed. Same one, and the judge signed it right here. That went off. He just made a little scribble right there. It actually says so ordered on October 8th, but it says October 10th and that one page was filed. So this actually happened 2 days earlier than it's stamped. I just said stamped. Stamped. 2 days earlier than it's stamped. Should I start saying stomped? Okay, this is a very serious show. We're dealing with serious matters here. No joking around. Okay, ordered that no less than 5 days. Material subject to disclosure, acquired, and after. Blah, blah. So I think he agreed. So he agreed, like, no, October 20th is the day. The government shall disclose to the defendant all the stuff. This is standard discovery order. The government shall disclose to the defendant no later than 15 days before the trial, complete statement of all opinions, bases and reasons for the opinions, the witness's qualifications, list of all other cases during the previous 4 years the witness has testified. I'm looking for anything unusual. I don't think there's anything unusual here. No later than 10 business days before trial, all 404B has to be taken care of. Brady material has to be produced, of course, and it's stuff that's favorable to the defense. So that's going to be Durham stuff. I believe that this right here, the Brady material, might be how we get the Durham memo from the Tropic Vortex investigation, which recommended against prosecution of anybody. Jingsack and Giglio materials known to the government. So this is going to be the government's own communications about things having to do with this case. No later than 5 business days before trial. Further order that the party shall file proposed stipulations with the court no later than 3 days before trial. Okay. So the other, we already know that Patrick Fitzgerald is counsel for Comey. The other person is Jessica Nicole Carmichael, who I'm not familiar with, but she's the other attorney, defense counsel for Comey. We may learn more about her as this goes forward. She filed this right here. So I'm wondering if she's licensed in Virginia and she's making these filings, but Patrick Fitzgerald is lead counsel. Because I see her name here. Okay. Here's the official order from the judge. Court has entered the standard discovery order. Order indicates that no later than 5 days before the deadline for pretrial motions, the government shall provide to the defense or make available for inspection and copying materials listed below. The first pretrial motion deadline in this matter is October 20th. So this week, Comey they should get all that stuff. And then maybe we'll learn some really interesting things in Comey's motions to dismiss. Okay, next one. This is the government's motion for a discovery order. The United States respectfully requests the court issue an order for 2 discovery deadlines. First, the discovery deadline relative to the defendant's initial motions, which are the disqualification of the U.S. attorney. That's going to be Lindsay Halligan. They're going to make a motion to disqualify her from this case. And the vindictive selective prosecution, to be set for tomorrow, October 14th. Second, the remaining discovery to be produced on or before October 20th. The government sought defendant's position on proposed dates, and defendant objects. That's the footnote. We already know all this. The parties briefly filed simultaneously. The parties did not agree on a joint discovery order. In the afternoon of October 7th, the parties engaged in their first communications regarding the case. At that time, the government discussed with the defendant proposed standard discovery and protective order. At the initial discussion, the defendant would not agree until the government provided information on the U.S. Attorney's appointment and the identities of person 1 and 3 in the indictment. That evening, the government provided the defendant the standard EDVA discovery agreement and a proposed discovery protective agreement via email. The defendant acknowledged receipt of those documents on October 8th. During the arraignment hearing, the government first learned of the defendant's request for the 2 motion deadlines. The government did not disagree with the defendant's request. After the arraignment hearing and to honor the court's directives, the parties agreed to a teleconference at 3 p.m. on October 8th. Defendant informed the discovery agreement was signed and they did not see a need for the 3 o'clock call. They were going to talk at 3, but at 2:30 they said, we already signed it. On the afternoon of October 9th, the defendant emailed back the government's proposed protective order with significant proposed edits. To discuss the discovery matters at issue, the parties agreed to teleconference the next morning. So next day, 8:30 a.m., the parties conferred on the outstanding discovery issues. The parties discussed the proposed joint discovery agreement, SIPA deadlines. The parties also discusses a footnote. Ms. Carmichael, the other defense attorney, has an active clearance and could begin reviewing any relevant classified material in the case. The government specifically informed the defendant the parties did not have an agreement as to the discovery order. And then it goes like at 3:12, they did this. At 5, they did this. Between 3:12 p.m. and 4:41 p.m., 9 emails were exchanged between the parties on the proposed discovery agreement. The government repeatedly informed the defendant that issues remained that the parties were not in agreement with, namely the discovery deadlines. The defendant persisted that the consent order should be filed by 5, but we could not agree. The defendant requested, the government agreed, that the court ordered 2 motions for deadlines, October 20th and October 30th. The first motion's deadline is to address the defendant's assertions that the U.S. attorney was unlawfully appointed and the prosecution is vindictive selective. The defendant say he required the documents appointing the U.S. attorney. Oh, the government has provided that document. So I wonder if that is the one piece of discovery they've gotten, is the document appointing Lindsay Halligan. Additionally, the defendant has provided a 19-page letter that includes substantial and abnormal requests regarding the vindictive selective prosecution allegation. These requests are for internal deliberative processes, attorney work product, and potentially privileged information. The government has asked for this material and will need to review it. We respectfully request the court set the discovery deadline for this material for October 14th. So that's tomorrow, Tuesday. Footnote. Defense position was that per court order discovery could have technically been due on Friday the 10th. This date is a federal holiday. Monday is today, and is also inconsistent with the discovery order from the court. It's a federal holiday, but there's filings anyway. That's cool. Next deadline was going to be October 30th. The parties have also conferred regarding discovery protection. So like that's the classified information, and then the private material here, the protected, we're going to talk about the protective order here, and the protective order is over the discovery materials, how they're going to be handled. The parties still lack agreement as to whether the discovery can be provided and retained by defendant. Consistent with the court's orders and directives, the government intends to file a proposed discovery protection agreement today, which they have. The government respectfully requests the initial discovery deadline as to the disqualification of U.S. attorney vindictive prosecution be set for tomorrow, Tuesday. And the remaining discovery be produced on or before October 20th. Let's see who's on this. Tyler Lemons, Diaz. Those are the two attorneys. Those are the ones from North Carolina. Okay. So we learned from there the one page of discovery that Comey's team has gotten so far probably has to do with Lindsay Halligan's appointment. I want to make sure I look. This is the right one. This is the one I just read. Yeah. Okay, this is the next one. Document 31. You know what's going on? In my episode, my previous episode, 344, episode 344, I talked about the problems with Pacer and how the Pacer hack has meant that filings in sensitive cases in particular are being handled all on paper, and things are very slow to hit Pacer, the electronic court tracking website. And so we're not getting things as quickly. And I bet that's why today suddenly we got documents that actually are dated back on October 8th. We got all of these this morning. I got a notification for all of these this morning because it's just lag. There's lag. That might be how it goes in this case. Is that things will be filed and be happening, and we won't be able to see them on Court Listener, because Court Listener, this website, it pulls from Pacer. We won't be able to see them because of that delay. So we may get like a group at a time. Instead of as soon as they're filed, they're here. But it's not happening electronically. Okay. Document 31. Comey's response to government's motion for discovery. We have dueling interpretations. That's dueling interpretations. You know, often when me and my wife talk about things, we have dueling interpretations. I'm going to try that next time my wife and I are arguing about something. I'm going to say, honey, we don't disagree. We just have dueling interpretations of the issue. How y'all think that's going to go over? The government then correctly stated that without further discussions between the parties, blah, blah, blah. This is all restating the drama of the discovery order. We talked to them here, and then they said this, and then we said this. While conferring about multiple matters on October 10th, 2025, the government stated that its interpretation of pretrial motion deadline was the second pretrial motion's deadline date. The defense disagreed with that interpretation. As the government knows, emails were sent back and forth. They should have just handled this. Is the judge, we're going to recount the text battle we just had, the dueling text. Okay. Both parties described the same disagreements in the filings. You two should just get married. The government cannot take a narrow reading of the term material. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Don't make an exception here. Any discussion as to the proposed protective order in the government's filing is irrelevant to the discovery order. The court should deny the government's request to deviate from the standard discovery order that the government requested at the outset. All right, now we have an order. So what did the judge say? Judge says, this matter comes before the court. You two are arguing about like a bunch, like an old married couple. On October 8th, the court set the dates. Court set Monday, October 20th as the deadline for the first round of pretrial motions, and Thursday, October 30th as the deadline for any additional pretrial motions. Court also ordered the parties to immediately confer. In the event the parties could not agree, joint discovery orders should be filed by Friday, October 10th. The court instructed the parties to each submit a proposed discovery order by 5 p.m. on Monday, October 13th. Friday, the defendant submitted a motion. Defendant's motion represented that the parties agreed with one exception. And according to the defendant's motion, the parties disagreed as to which of the two pretrial deadlines prompted the government's obligation as to Rule 16. That same day, October 10th, the court issued the standard discovery order and issued an order stating that October 20th is the pretrial motions deadline that prompts Rule 16. October 11th, the government submitted its own motion for discovery. The government's motion disputes defendant's representation. On October 14th, the government requested the court set two deadlines for Rule 16, the 14th and the 20th. Defendant opposed. Having reviewed the proposed discovery order submitted by the government, the court finds that it is substantively identical to the discovery order submitted by the defendant, with the single exception of the date and scope of Rule 16. Given that this matter is scheduled for jury trial on January 5th, 2026, we corrects that, it is critical that the government moves expeditiously. Accordingly, the government's motion for discovery order is denied. It is further ordered that the government shall provide defendant with all discovery under Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 16 by today, Monday, October 13th. To the extent that the parties cannot reach agreement by Monday on the protective order, the court shall promptly set a hearing. So Judge Nachmanov says, yeah, it's all due today. All of it. And if you can't agree on a protective order to handle it, then I'm going to set a hearing, get you two in the same room, and straighten you out. And then we have proposed protective order. This one is from USA, and this one is from Comey. USA says this is how the evidence is going to be handled. The discovery, is going to be handled. Well, it's evidence, but defendant is charged with false statement and obstruction. Of note, count 1 alleges that the defendant made a false statement to the Senate Judiciary Committee when he denied that he authorized someone at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports. The vast majority of the discovery is law enforcement sensitive, for official use only, includes private emails or text, or is otherwise sensitive because of the private nature of the information. Additionally, there is heightened media interest in this case. Through social media, the defendant has already made a public statement regarding the indictment. Both the defendant and the government have an interest in a fair trial with impartial jurors making decisions based only on the evidence that is part of the record. The need to produce much of the discovery as close to its original format as possible, together with the volume of data and the interest in producing the material, makes it infeasible to make extensive redactions to the materials. Accordingly, the proposed protective order regulates discovery in this case by restricting the use of dissemination of discovery. The proposed protective order prohibits, got a lot of P's there for me to pop. Sorry. Proposed protective order prohibits the dissemination of these materials and the information contained therein to third parties other than as necessary for the defendant's investigation of the allegations and the preparation of the defendant's defenses. The government and defense attorneys have conferred as to the content of the proposed order. An initial draft of the order was sent to the defense. This initial version was drawn from and based on prior protective orders entered in the Eastern District of Virginia. Defense attorneys responded with several edits. Defense objects to the provision in the protective order that disallows defense attorneys from leaving the discovery with the defendant. Through public filings, the government has reviewed at least 10 protective orders that were entered on the docket in this district. Each of these protective orders included a similar provision. Second, the government's position is that all discovery is protective material, except for that portion of discovery that is already carved out in paragraph 2 of the proposed order. So they're saying they don't want this stuff disseminated, and they don't want Comey to have a copy of the discovery to take home. That's how I'm understanding this. Here's the proposed order. The disclosure or provision of documents or materials by the government to the defendant shall not operate as a waiver of any privilege. I'm looking for anything that actually informs us of something here. The defendant's attorneys and the above designated individuals may share the protected materials with the defendant during in-person, virtual, or telephonic meetings, but shall not leave copies with the defendant. Okay. Let's see how Comey's proposed protective order differs. Our protective order differs from the government's requested one in several respects. Primarily, it does not prohibit discovery labeled protective material from being provided to Mr. Comey for his review. It allows the defense attorneys to show protected material to prospective defense witnesses or their counsel. And then there are some terms that it harmonizes. Defendant's attorneys instead of attorneys of record. It allows permission of the court described in paragraph 10 to be made ex parte, and it requires the government to selectively designate and label discovery as protected material rather than almost all discovery. So, simply, what Comey's team wants is to be able to provide Comey with a copy of discovery for his own review and to be able to show this discovery to potential witnesses and their attorneys. And they want the government to not blanketly label everything as protected, but to have to selectively go through and say, this is protected, this is not. Now it goes through Comey's history here. What the government is asking for places his defense at a severe and unnecessary disadvantage to insist that he be prohibited from possessing protected material to be able to review and refer to whenever necessary throughout the preparation of defense. Similarly, designating essentially all discovery as protected material while at the same time prohibiting defense attorneys from being able to show protected material to prospective witnesses unduly impedes Mr. Comey's ability to defend his case. I remember this kind of thing. Remember this in Trump's case, in the Docs case? Where they didn't want Trump to be able to look at the documents. And they were like, and his team was like, WTF, he was the president of the United States and these were his documents. He's seen them before and has used them. He knows what they are. Why can't we show them to him? And why can't we use them in preparation of our defense? This reminds me of that. And let me hit F5 here. Okay, we don't have anything further yet. So not the most exciting stuff, but we're going to keep track of this case and stay up on these documents. Sounds like this week we're going to get some big filings, though. We're going to get some very interesting filings this week. Might be every week. This case is going to move. And I'm just going to keep taking you guys through it, just like I did with Jack Smith's case against Trump, and just like I did with Durham's cases. We're just gonna stick with this docket and keep on going through what's the filings here and track this case. We learned so much in all the cases we've followed on this channel. We've learned so much by tracking it, filing by filing. And sure, there were times where we're like, that was a waste of time, or that was boring, or that was a lot of the same stuff over again. But then we would find things that were super interesting. And we would also learn things that other people missed. And we would be not just up to date with the case, we would know what was going on, and we wouldn't fall for the clickbait media. Whether it was clickbait media on the right or the left, we didn't fall for it because we'd paid attention to the case. You know, one example that comes to mind was with some of the stuff that had to do with Barbara Jones in different cases against Trump, and how it had to do with Trump org. In cases that had to do with Trump org, Barbara Jones kept getting appointed as this special master or as a this third party manager. And we tracked down how there was this relationship there and how she kept on appearing in these unique circumstances. And she was protecting the fact that Trump org is an FBI asset. That Trump is too. And we would see media stories just like trying to tear it apart or whatever, and then we would go and look at it and be like, oh, we see what's going on here. And you see things like people get mad at the judge no matter what, but we would go and be like, oh, actually, what the judge decided there made sense. Okay. I'm going to pause right here and decide what I'm going to go over in the rest of this episode. We're only an hour in. I don't know if I want to release this as a 1 hour episode. Not sure, because I'm wondering if there's going to be more filings today on this docket. And if there is, I might just want to throw those into this. I'm going to have a think about it. Okay, I've thought about it, and I'm just going to make this one episode here because we've gone over discovery and protective orders, and that basically covers what has happened in this case in the past 3 days. And then what we're looking forward next is what the judge actually orders with regard to protect the handling of the class of the how the judge is going to decide this right here, and whether or not he's going to call him into the court for a powwow and straighten him out. And then we have the selective and vindictive prosecution and the motion to disqualify Lindsay Halligan coming up this week. So I'm going to leave this episode here. If you guys like it and you want me to keep following this case, let me know by liking, sharing, commenting on these episodes, and by visiting my support links. If you need some Benson honey farms, you can get some honey or some soap. Their soap is really good. Their goat milk soap, it's very good. Bootleg products, it's getting cooler weather. Chili, their chili is so freaking delicious. Ko-fi.com if you just want to buy me a cup of coffee. Manly cans if you're looking for a gift for someone. Merch if you want to get yourself a coffee mug or a sticker or a shirt or whatever. And then the number one way to support the show, as always, is a paid subscription. justhuman.substack.com. $7 a month keeps me caffeinated and keeps me focused on these court cases. All right, guys, thank you very much. And I will see you on the next episode, which I teased in the last episode. I said something about going over some InfoWar material, some information about the peace deal, which, hallelujah, Hallelujah. And praise God, and many thanks to Trump and Netanyahu, Kushner, Witkoff, and others for getting that peace deal done. And we also have the James case and some InfoWars stuff to go over. So depending on how many filings are in this case, I'll do filings only episodes, and then this other material will be its own episode. And that's what I'm going to work on next. All right. God bless. Thank you all. See you next time.